Department. With me is Ms. Ariel Smith, who I'll introduce a little later. This morning, it saddens me to stand before you to share the news that we have lost another member of our community, this time to domestic violence. Domestic violence has no place in Madison or anywhere else in our country. And we are committed to helping the survivors of domestic violence. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. On Sunday afternoon around 3:20 p.m., MPD officers responded to an address in the 10 block of Darien Circle, D-A-R-I-E-N Circle, for 911 calls about a person who was reported to have been deceased. The callers were third parties who were not on scene, and information was very limited. Of note, we have not been called to this address before. We had no call history of this address, and none of the persons were known to MPD officers. Responding officers, along with the Madison Fire Department personnel, entered the home. There they located a deceased female who was in her mid-40s. It was apparent to officers on the scene that the victim had been violently physically attacked. Officers immediately began treating the victim. However, she was pronounced deceased. Numerous detectives and officers responded to the location and began the investigative process, which lasted for several difficult hours. I want to thank all of the personnel from the fire department, from our EMS, and from our police department who responded to investigate this difficult crime. Our investigative efforts reveal that the suspect in this incident was a deceased woman's husband, also in his mid-40s. As officers were attempting to locate him, the deceased husband, numerous calls began coming into 911 indicating that a man was on foot on the belt line between Old Sauk and Greenway Cross, S-A-U-K. This man was reported to have been hit by a vehicle, then uninjured or unseverely injured, left the belt line in his vehicle. The same male, a short time later, was reported to be on I-90 near mile marker 140 on the east side of Madison. There, this man once again got out of his vehicle on foot, and this time stepped in front of a semi-truck. Ultimately, the man was pronounced deceased on the scene. The Wisconsin State Patrol is leading the investigation into the crash, and we certainly thank them for all their hard work. The man who was struck in traffic was identified as the husband of the deceased. As per protocol, MPD will not be releasing the name of the deceased individuals in this incident. This information, as well as the cause and manner of death of each individual, will be released by the medical examiner. We're investigating this incident as a murder-suicide. The incident appears to be domestic in nature. There's no ongoing danger to our public at this time, and we ask for privacy for the family during this very difficult time. Today, we're joined by Ms. Ariel Smith, the Director of Policy Planning and Evaluation from the Public Health Madison-Dane County. Ariel will be speaking on community resources related to domestic violence. As I turn things over to her, I will then take a few questions.
Thank you. Good morning. It saddens me to hear that we have lost two members of our community to domestic violence related issues. Domestic violence continues to be an issue that plagues our community, even though it remains sometimes hidden. Although this act is very publicized, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone that there are others in our community struggling with domestic violence. And I encourage everyone who may know of someone or may be experiencing domestic violence themselves to reach out to our local resource, which is DAYS. And I will be happy to give the phone number and the contact information momentarily. As Public Health Madison-Dane County continues to work on violence prevention efforts, please know that this is also in our portfolio. We talk a lot about firearm violence, but we don't forget that domestic violence, sexual violence, and suicide continues to plague our communities. And we are dedicated to addressing those issues and working on the shared protective and risk factors that lead to violence in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Are there any questions for me or Ms. Smith? Yes.
Was anyone else home at the time of the event?
We're not going to release any information about any other family members at this time.
Did the incident,
Sorry, go ahead.
did the incident happen in the deceased woman's home?
Yes. Yes.
Chief, are you able to share more information about, you said the individual was hit by one car? Did that car
Yeah,
race out?
it appears, yes, it appears that he got out in the belt line, proceeded to walk in front of traffic. He was hit, but he wasn't severely injured. So he was able to get in his vehicle. He drove to another location where he again parked on the side of the road. This time, he chose a much bigger vehicle and unfortunately passed as a result of those injuries.
So we know it began as a weapons violation investigation. What changed? You know, what is the piece of evidence maybe that led to this now being investigated as a homicide, a murder-suicide?
I'm sorry, could you start with the first part again?
Sure, so it was initially a weapons violation. We were told that it was a weapons violation incident, so, you know.
Yeah, well, let me clean that part up. So the officers did receive a 911 call that someone in the home was deceased. So whether it was said it was a weapon or not, I'm not sure about that, but they were responding to that. And we do that often, welfare checks and things of that nature. Someone could or could not be hurt. That happens a lot in policing. And of course, you get there, you look at the address to see if there's anything about this address, but there was nothing. But the officers did the right thing by going in, and unfortunately, this one turned out to be true.
Was there a weapon involved?
We're going to leave that information to the investigation, and we'll let the medical examiner tell us what exactly was the cause of death. Obviously, there was some weapon that was used, but we're not sure.
You mentioned that the woman was killed by a violent physical attack. At this time, do you believe that was intentional or her death was a result of an accident?
No, we believe it was intentional. We're investigating it as a homicide and a suicide, subsequent suicide.
Was the man also living at the home at the time, and were they married?
Yes, it was her husband. Yes,
Okay, and
Yes.
they were both living at that
That's correct.
place where the incident happened?
yes. Thank you.
Will you confirm that the semi-accident or the crash, that was the same one, I-39, the call came in right before 4 p.m.? We're talking about the same, this one.
I believe, yes, I believe that is the one. Yes.
And I know, can you say if they had any children or?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about their family at this particular time. Obviously, we're going to talk to everyone who was involved or who may have known this couple to see if we can figure out what exactly happened here. Obviously, these scenes are kind of fluid. You get there and there's no history, there's nothing to go on. And so we want to talk to absolutely everyone that we can. The officers also did a neighborhood canvass yesterday in the rain, going door to door, talking to people to see if they see or heard something that we can put together this scene again. So again, I want to thank the officers. There's a lot of work that was done yesterday in kind of undesirable conditions, but that's okay. That's what we do here every day, and hopefully we can put some closure to those who may be remaining. But again, the most important thing is if you are a victim of domestic violence or you know someone who you think may be a victim of domestic violence, we have to take these seriously. We respond to all calls of domestic violence. We do reports on any call involving domestic violence, whether actual or not. And we keep that information and we will follow up on it. And so I want our community to know that if you know someone who may be suffering or you know someone who may be involved, there's help out there. You know, we have public health here and she's going to give some information here shortly. And I encourage all of our media partners to put that number at the end of this particular news clip and let people know that our media, you guys are very big partners for us, and you can help us get the word out for someone who may see this story and think that I don't want this to happen to someone who I love or I want to prevent this. Get that number out there. Give us a call and give us an opportunity to help you develop a plan for your safety.
I'm sorry, you didn't say their exact ages. Are you able to say that? How old the woman is?
In their 40s. I don't know their exact ages.
You mentioned that this couple wasn't known to police. Police had never been called to this address. Is it surprising whenever police are called to an address for something this severe without ever being called there before?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's surprising whenever we respond to a homicide, but not having any background information or not knowing, you know, what specifically we're walking into always makes things a little bit more dangerous for the officers. But I think they did a good job on this case. Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, I think to further answer your question, it's actually more typical that there aren't priors, especially in a lot of extreme circumstances, domestic violence cases. And so that's why it's so important for us to get the word out and people understand the resources, because a lot of times there aren't telling indicators or signs that something might be going on.
Right, so Ariel will be available to give you that information if you need it, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mind just spelling your name and saying what you
Absolutely.
Can you say a little louder so I can grab that?
Sorry.
Do you want me to back up here?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is
So my
James
name
Langer.
is
I'm the digital
Ariel
content
Smith. It's
manager
spelled AUR
at
IE.
channel3000.com. Just in case you were late to join us, going to recap some of the details here that we just heard from Madison Police on their homicide investigation. So, as we reported yesterday, police were called to Darien Circle. It's on the far west side of Madison, just off of North High Point Road, for a report that somebody was dead inside a home. So officers got to the scene. They found a woman in her 40s inside. They tried to revive her, but it was too late. She was declared dead at the scene. Around the same time, police got reports of a man who was walking on the belt line and actually got hit by a car, but that man was not seriously hurt, Police Chief Sean Barnes said, and he got back into his car and kept driving. He then drove to the opposite end of town, to the interstate just off of Buckeye Road on the east side of town. That's where yesterday the State Patrol confirmed that a man had parked his vehicle on the shoulder of the road and then walked out in front of a semi and was hit and killed. We heard from some witnesses yesterday who said that the man was covered in blood before he was hit by the car. And police confirming this morning that that man was the husband of the woman who was found deceased in their home on the west side of Madison. So police say they are now investigating this as a case of domestic violence, as a case of a murder-suicide involving these two people. They did not release the identities of the people involved. They also did not release the manner of death in which the woman was killed. Sean Barnes saying those details will come from the medical examiner once autopsies are complete. But that's what we know right now after those details from Chief Sean Barnes. We're going to have all these updates over at channel3000.com shortly, and we will continue to follow this story throughout the day. So be sure to keep checking channel3000.com for updates. Download our mobile app. We'll have those updates sent out as push alerts as well. And also be sure to watch our newscasts later tonight and at noon as well. We're going to have a recap of all of this on News 3 Now at noon, as well as our evening newscast as our reporting team in the field continues to dig into this and tries to learn more about the people who were involved and what else might have happened here. But again, just to recap, Madison Police saying the call that they responded to on the west side of Madison yesterday afternoon that they originally reported as a weapons violation is now a homicide, a murder-suicide investigation after a woman was found dead inside that home, and the woman's husband is believed to have taken his own life by stepping in front of a semi-truck on the interstate yesterday afternoon. So obviously still a lot of investigating to do in this. We will provide those updates to you as they come from the police department. In the meantime, stay tuned to channel3000.com for more.
News 3 Now is always on.
Get the Channel 3000 app, activate the push alerts, and we will send you breaking news, traffic, and weather alerts as it happens.
The Channel 3000 app. Get it now.
Powered by News 3 Now.